So after putting over 100 plus hours into Darkest Dungeon 2, I wanted to get my thoughts out about it and the future of the game and kind of the direction I want to see it going. When you compare it to Darkest Dungeon 1 and the early access experience of both of them, and how Darkest Dungeon had, like 6+ years of time to kind of build and develop into the game it is now, which is an amazing game that I still have to go back and finish. But, I'll do that eventually. I haven't done the DLC or even finished the main campaign, but I have about like 70 hours in the game. It's just a good time, and Darkest Dungeon 2 really, scratches an itch that, needed to be scratched for a while. I think it's just the team building aspect of it, and I love the 3D models that they've implemented into the game, opposed to, and I like Darkest Dungeon 1 and the art style of it and everything, but the aesthetics, the art, the sound, and everything of Darkest Dungeon 2 is just top notch. The characters all look amazing. There's just a lot to enjoy about the aesthetic of the game. But what I wanted to talk about was, the recent update, a couple key points about it, like the collector fight, surgeon, the flame rework, and just kind of how I want the game to progress looking forward. They have put out like a small tidbit into upcoming patches, and today they just added a public test for some of the changes that they're implementing, so I'll talk about that a little bit too. The first thing I kind of wanted to go over though was the collector. The way the collector was implemented into Darkest Dungeon 2 just feels very natural. I really enjoy the token system with this fight, and the way that the heads have their own very strong presence in the battle, namely Vestal and the Highwayman. But the Man-at-Arms does a great job of, doing Man-at-Arms things, and I think that's great. I think that compared to the Darkest Dungeon 1 fight, it's a lot more, maybe not threatening, but if you don't know, Darkest Dungeon 1 Collector had, a huge susceptibility to just being stunned and killing him in like 2 turns if you, could optimize it right and everything, but that's besides the point. This fight just has a lot going for it, and you have to play around your team's weaknesses more than you might have to play around their strengths, because Collector doesn't really have that much health. To be fair, there are ordainments and things like that, and modifiers and whatnot, but at base he doesn't have that much health. But if you don't respect how much health he has, the Vestal can cure dots off of him, which is a huge thing, and heal him for a pretty decent amount. You get the Edguard from Man-at-Arms. Highwayman is just going to be stacking bleed, getting strength from the Vestal. There's a lot that could go wrong, and the fact that it can just come out of nowhere from like any road battle, it's an omnipresent threat. But I like that. I think that is something the game kind of needed, because before that there was just death with the Flagellant and the Shambler, kind of like if you had Zero Torch. But I like the Collector. He has really nice rewards. All of his trinkets are welcome on most builds. There's one for the different archetypes: melee damage, range damage. Well, it's more like melee support, but range damage and just general healer. But it's all a good experience for the most part, setting aside the fact that you might get jumped by a Collector with not the best condition, but that's just the game, right? I like it. I think he's really, really welcome. He's welcome back, really, when you think about it. But yeah, and the Surgeon being the other big addition in content, and I love the Surgeon. It just has such a great risk reward to going, to the Surgeon's table node. The Surgeon being able to cure disease, but also the patience that he has in his fight, and the longevity of the fight. It's like a creature den, so it's 2 battles, and you don't heal between them. The fact you can get a disease from it but also he can cure the disease. Surgeon, who, by the way, is really like I don't think he's like, of all the bad guys in the game, he seems like nice enough. I guess, I don't know. He just seems like a dude. I mean, yeah, he hits you with a bone saw, but like he's just playing with his leeches and stuff. I don't know, man. He seems kind of sweet. The surgeon has really good trinkets as well. I really enjoy. I think it's his apron. Really nice to put on. You know, like support. You kind of just want to not have to worry about. Plague Doctor. Vessel you could put on tanks even. I do know it has like extra healing if you have restorative item equipped, so like healing salve or whatever. But I think you have reduced healing from skills, so you know there's like benefits to having it on a tank and not having it on a tank and just putting it on like backline support. Regardless, they have, you know, really nice in items in the Orbital class that removes, I don't even know if I said that right, but it removes all negative quirks. And I think the negative 10% max health is just for one zone, so it's nice too. The spiked cap bone saw is a really nice combat item. Just, you know, a lot of really engaging trinkets to have that you might be, you know, feasting for. Especially the apron. I think the apron's probably one of the better ones, but I know the spiked hat can be really good on Hellion, for example. There's just a lot of potential in, you know, going to Surgeon's Stable node. I like it a lot. It's a nice alternative to the hospital sometimes, because you don't have to spend relics on just getting disease removed or quirk removed. You could go to the Surgeon's Table, maybe get a little bit more relics, a nice trinket. Surgeon could cure a disease. You get the Orbiter class. You can get leeches from him. It's nice to see it on the map, so I like that a lot. I also wanted to talk about the flame rework for the, I think they're called, oh, I can't remember, the Infernal Flames, I think they're called, the blue one. So each one of them got reworked, and I haven't played with all of them yet. I don't have all of them unlocked. It's just a huge candle sink, but I do have the Despairing Flame. And the thing about the Despairing Flame, or the flames in general, before they got reworked, was the debuffs and the punishment for equipping it wasn't really like an engaging challenge. It was more of just like number changes, which is pretty boring in terms of just reducing like positive relationship chance, reducing max health sometimes, reducing death blow resistance, you know, just like things that obviously make the game harder, but not in any mechanical engaging way. Just, you know, arbitrary, kind of shallow, I would say. The way that they are now, there's a much more prevalent sense of engagement with them. The Despairing Flame, for example, sets your torch to half, so it's always at 50 for max flame. And it reduces the amount your flame drain has when you're traveling, right? This is really nice because there's a lot of trinkets in the game that you get from the sluice that when you're under 40 torchlight, they have effects that activate, but getting under 40 torchlight in a normal run of Darkest Dungeon 2 just can be hard. One, because there's a lot of ways that you just gain torchlight from fights or assistance nodes and things like that, so it can be hard to keep it below 40. But with the Despairing Flame, since, you know, 40 really isn't that far off and you can keep it there, you can get these trinket effects to work, which is nice. It opens up like a whole new way to engage with the trinket system in the game, and since the flame drain is lower, things like glimmers have more value just inherently, which is also nice. The other lights, the other torches, I should say, also have effects that go similarly, like the corpse light. which, if you leave a corpse alive, can spawn like a carrion eater, which could eat another corpse and get even stronger. So it has this like snowball effect where if you don't kill the corpse, it can get out of hand, right? So this forces you to prioritize skills like Demon's Pull, Purge, Dead of Night, Magnesium Rain, things that clear corpses for you. So you end up building a team that you might not build under normal circumstances, engaging with systems that maybe you just play around normally. Like you just do your best to forget it. Like you have, I don't know, Sharp Shot Highwayman because you just don't want to be bothered with a corpse being in your way or something. These kinds of changes to the flame system are really, really hopeful for the game's future. I think that it shows that they're trying to promote, you know, a various different amount of play styles and just engagement with the systems that they have, because they're really like, the framework of Darkest Dungeon 2 is great, but sometimes the implementation just isn't there for this game, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit. But at the end of the day, the flame rework is not only a great sign of life for the game, because I really like the different torch effects and everything. I just think that, you know, Red Hook is doing their best to pay attention to, you know, what the community wants, because no one liked the Stygian flame. Like, it didn't do anything for you. It was straight just like debuffs. They gave you more candles, but it took 300 candles to get it, so it's like, it wasn't even that many more. So it's kind of like, what's the point? It just prioritized affinity items more than anything, so you ended up spending all of your relics and whatnot, just trying to keep everyone at 14 plus, so you couldn't get a negative. You wouldn't get a positive relationship out of it, but you couldn't get a negative one either. I mean, you could potentially, but it was unlikely just because the odds are so skewed against it. But with the way that it is now, it's much more interactive. It's not so, like, I don't know, kick you in the balls type difficulty, where it's just kind of like artificial, I guess would be the best word for it. It's really nice. I think it's great. I think that the way that the flames also change for your confession is really nice. How every confession has different flame effects and different you know, risk rewards in the infernal flames. So if your torchlight actually gets low, you might get certain buffs like extra crit chance, but the enemies still get their own buffs, right? So it's nice. It's like there's risk reward even within the risk reward, where you could just go, you know, as, you know, crazy with it as you want. And, you know, on top of the fact that the like I said, the confessions have their own set of buffs per like high or low torchlight. For example, I think you get like strength, like a 10% chance for a strength token, and the fourth confession, and the enemy gets something like 10% chance for Vuln. I like full torchlight. So, you know, it's something along those lines. When before, it was just straight, you get 6% DBR if you have high torchlight and 10% chance to blind the enemy, and that was for every confession. Just kind of, you know, it's boring when you're playing a roguelike and there's all these different paths and things that just kind of end up having like a homogenous element that doesn't need to be. And Red Hook kind of seeing that, you know, through feedback or what have you, and deciding to change it to make it more interesting. I like that. I like that a lot. So, you know, all great things that they did in the last update. Some of the things that they're, you know, probably going to add in a future update that are in their beta right now. They're trying to mitigate like RNG and add more variety and replayability. So it's straight from Red Hook. They're reworking the monster's death door mechanics. You can choose what party members replace dead ones at the end. You can change paths for, you know, a set amount of currency and get your mastery refunded by doing that. So that's really nice. They're making the faction road fights return, when instead, normally you get the pillagers and the gaunts and whatever. But now if you're in the shroud, you get more like fish people and stuff. So it's all like, it's all great. I like all these changes that they're striving for, and just promoting just general experimentation, I guess. A game like this needs a lot of, I want to try this team now, or I want to see what this path offers, or if I put these two heroes together, what kind of crazy shit can happen. Just a bunch of really, really nice things coming out of the last patch, and hopefully future patches. Something I wanted to touch on before I ended the video, and kind of put my 2 cents into the general discussion of hero balance, which I'm very invested in, because I have an idea of how I would like the future changes to heroes. I have an idea of how I would like them to proceed. I think it would be much more interesting for the longevity and the overall engagement and balance of the game. Quickly touching on the public beta that they're doing for the next patch, and the general reworks that they're doing. I like the idea of the death armor tokens, and for those not aware, they're reworking death blow resistance on monsters to death armor tokens. And essentially what's happening is, instead of it being a random chance to resist it with every hit lowering the resistance by 10%, they're instead given the same number of death armor tokens, and every time they get hit on death's door, they lose a token. And they have no tokens, and you hit them and they die on death's door. Moves that used to have death blow resistance piercing, like Wicked Slice, now instead remove a specified number of death armor tokens. So if you get a monster on a death's door that has 1 token, you would have to hit them once and then hit them again to actually finish them. So it's much more consistent. You don't have to worry too much about RNG. And since it's a normal token, I think the most they can have is 3. So you don't have to worry about crazy, ridiculous death blow resist monsters. I know some of the knights and the Tangle were pretty crazy. So these moves now instead have a property called execution, where they remove an additional token when, or however many tokens that are specified on the move, when they're on death's door. So for example, Wicked Slice removes 1. So if the monster has 1 token and you hit them with Wicked Slice when they're on death's door, instead of needing to be hit twice, they just need to be hit once. And I really like this mechanic. I think the consistency in the fights, and knowing, what the monster specifically needs. It's like before, it was almost like they had a random amount of health in a way, and that's a little weird in a game like this, where it's a very punishing game. You need to play very meticulously around a bunch of different things. I love the token based mechanics in this game, so I'm glad to see that the monster's death's door is now using that token system that I love so much, because it makes it much easier to anticipate and play around stronger monsters, which is good, which is healthy. I think that's healthy balance. And they also gave a bunch of huge buffs to the occultists, and just to name a couple things, the sacrificial stab has execution 1, which means it removes a death armor token. The unupgraded curses, so for weakening, it's weaken, and for vulnerability, it's vuln, right? Obviously, when unupgraded, it gives 2 of their respective tokens, and when upgraded, it removes all. If it's weaken, it removes strength tokens, and if it's vulnerability, it'll remove block tokens. It removes them, and then gives the 2 debuffs, which is really nice. Sacrificial stab now has debuff resist debuff that's put onto a monster when they're comboed, and a few other things. I know they changed malediction to instead of turns, it's rounds now, which is nice. So yeah, just like a couple of really nice buffs to the occultists. Oh, and the big one, almost forgot, the target HP doesn't have to be below 33% now. It just has to be either 50% or below, or under 50%, something like that. So that's it's a huge buff to occultist now. It makes weird a much more safer option, which is nice because obviously there's the bleed chance and stuff. I know a lot of people say about weird reconstruction specifically that the heal is supposed to be used like when it's not a life or death situation. You know what I mean? You want to use it when the hero might not die from bleed, because it's just too big of a risk. I don't think the crit heal thing was changed at all. I just don't know. I didn't see anything in the patch notes about it. So that's still just like, you know, if you want to gamble your unchecked power on that, you know, you can go ahead. But you can crit 0 still. So, you know, it's just the nature of the character. I don't think they want to make changes to the idea behind his risk reward identity, I guess. They just want to make the reward a little bit better, which is good. I like that he still has his identity. That being said, I haven't played on it yet. I'm gonna play on it later, and see how, you know, everything goes and how I like it. So I'm really excited to do that. I'm gonna be doing that on stream. So if you see that, you know, probably put a video out on it as well, just to show off my experience with it. So look forward to that, I guess. But more what I wanted to talk about is related to the paths. And let me start by saying that the Flagellant is my favorite character in this game. I absolutely love the playstyle and the versatility that his paths offer, and just the general approach to this character. He was the last character release, so I do feel like they're going to try to bring everybody to this level. And I think this focus would be a lot more interesting, in my opinion, than adding new characters. But I'd be happy with both. So what am I talking about? The Flagellant paths are amazing. Each one has its own specific playstyle that is still connected to the identity of the Flagellant, and I think that's really important for this game. Having the option to use your favorite character in a bunch of different ways that still feels like the character adds a lot to the team building, which then adds a lot to the replayability aspect of this game, especially when you look at, you know, the reworked torch and infernal flame system and everything. There's just so many different ways that everyone run can differ from the next. Very important for a roguelike. But I would like to see all of the other heroes have a path system like the Flagellants. You know, you have Wanderer, which is still a completely viable path. It doesn't necessarily have a super strong, you know, playstyle that it's leaning into, but if you just need like a general approach, relatively consistent character, you could just pick the Wanderer and it's fine. But if you need something that's maybe a little bit more specialized, you need something that has a lot more damage, or if you want to kind of anchor your team around a specific playstyle, you have, you know, 4 different options, which essentially just, you know, adds so much to the combat of the game. And, you know, the root of this game is the combat, so I feel like these changes would really help the longevity of the game. Conversely, I think the worst design a character has would be one like the Jester. And again, we're talking about the paths. I love the Jester. He's in like my normal team that I love to run. But when you look at Wanderer, Virtuoso, Soloist, and Intermezzo, probably butchered that, I have no idea. You know, especially comparing Wanderer to Virtuoso, it's basically just Jester Plus. And I know that's kind of a meme, right? But if you look at it, there's not really a whole lot that changes with the way you would approach the character. The 20% max HP, awesome. 3 speed, awesome. Allies randomly getting 100% stress resistance for 2 turns, pretty cool. Even the negative dot res, which is supposed to be the trade-off for picking this, is offset buy the max HP or trinkets or what have you. Like, it's not that hard to counter dot res in this game, in my opinion. Plus, it's only 20%. So, it's not really like a huge detriment, especially since you can kind of play Jester like a dodge tank in a way. Obviously, there's still soloist, but if you compare, you know, Virtuoso to soloist, sorry, you're losing the 20% max health and the -3 speed. So if you have been playing the Jester and unlocking the pass in order, you're basically going from Virtuoso to soloist to try it out, and you just lost 40% of your max health and 6 speed for 20 damage and 33% resistance piercing and conditional 10 crit. It's crazy to me. It's not like you're looking at, you know, you're playing the Flagellant whatever, and you unlock Maniac, and it's like, oh wow, you know, he has all kinds of disruptive properties, debuffs, and all these other things. Like, that's a different character almost. And then you go to examine it, and you're like, this dude's all about like playing on that Razor's Edge type thing, you know? It's just crazy to me that these two characters exist in the same game, and I'm excited, especially if this is true, to get these other characters to this point. I think it would be just honestly a lot of fun to see what they add and the different changes to the skills, especially a character like Flagellant. His skills change so much. Like, Lash's Gift is just a radically different move depending on what you're playing on. Suffer can change in big ways too. Punish and Acid Rain, his two like primary, you know, means of dealing damage, also get pretty drastic changes to them depending on what you're on, which are some of his just like, you know, key tools. It's exciting to see the potential that the other characters have when you look at the Flagellant. So that was, you know, my 2 cents on the hero balance. I'm excited to see if we get, you know, more paths like the Flagellant. Overall though, I'm really happy with the game. I love the token based combat. I love the enemy designs and the art and everything. It's just such a pretty game, such a crazy world that they've built, and just playing it is a lot of fun. So, you know, I'm really excited for the future of the game, and I appreciate you watching the video till the end. It means a lot. I just wanted to kind of keep my thoughts and opinions out on it. And yeah, you know, if you like it, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video, hopefully. You take it easy.